The stars in the Epsilon burial grounds looked like scattered diamonds against black silk. Hundreds of dead ships floated in the void, their hulls torn open and frozen in eternal silence. This graveyard stretched for millions of kilometers, a memorial to countless battles fought and lost over centuries. Commander Thel-Axis stood on the bridge of the Time's Crimson Dominance asterisk, his 4 eyes scanning the display screens with practiced efficiency. His scaled skin reflected the blue light from the monitors, creating shifting patterns across his face. The Valorian Imperial fleet had ruled this section of space for 3 decades, ever since they crushed the human resistance and scattered the survivors to the far corners of the galaxy. "Commander, we have detected an anomaly," the sensor officer announced, her voice carrying the characteristic hiss of their species. "There is a vessel. In grid, section 749. It appears to be drifting without power." Thel-Axis moved closer to examine the readings. "Classification? Unknown, sir. The hull design matches old human architecture from before the war. But that is impossible. No human ships operate in this region." The commander felt a twinge of curiosity. Human vessels were rare prizes now, most having been destroyed or captured long ago. "Bring us closer. Prepare a boarding team." As the massive dreadnought approached the derelict, more details became visible. The ship was smaller than most military vessels, perhaps 300 meters long. Its hull bore no damage, no signs of battle or decay. It simply floated there, dark and silent. "This is strange," muttered the science officer, a young male named Creston. "The hull shows no deterioration, no radiation scoring. It looks almost new." "How long has it been here?" Thel-Axis asked. "Impossible to determine, Commander. But based on the design, this ship is at least 200 years old. It should not look like this." The boarding team assembled in the launch bay, 20 warriors in full combat armor. Thel-Axis watched them through the security feed as they boarded the transport shuttle. Something about this situation made his scales itch with unease, but he pushed the feeling aside. He was a decorated officer of the Empire. He did not fear ghosts. The shuttle crossed the empty space between the 2 ships and attached itself to the human vessel's airlock. The boarding team leader, Sergeant Vecnar, activated his communication device. "We are at the entry point, attempting to override the door mechanism." Minutes passed. Then, the airlock opened, with a hiss of equalizing pressure. "We are inside," Vecnar reported. "Atmosphere is breathable. Temperature is normal. Lights are off, but our equipment shows intermittent power readings throughout the ship." "Proceed with caution," Thel-Axis ordered. "Map the interior and locate the bridge." The boarding team moved through the corridors, their camera feeds transmitting back to the Time's Crimson Dominance asterisk. The interior was pristine, almost unnaturally clean. Emergency lighting flickered occasionally, casting brief shadows that made the Valorian warriors flinch. "Commander, we have found something." Vecnar's voice carried tension. "There are cryogenic pods here. Medical bay section. They appear to have been recently opened." Thel-Axis leaned forward. "Recently? How recently?" "The controls show activation within the last few hours, sir." A cold feeling spread through the commander's chest. "Are there bodies?" "Negative. The pods are empty. Whatever was inside is gone." The team continued deeper into the ship. They found crew quarters, a mess hall, engineering sections. Everything looked ready for immediate use, as if the crew had simply vanished mid-operation. Weapon racks lined one wall, but they were empty. Every single mounting point had been cleared. "Sir, we have reached the bridge," Vecnar reported. The camera feed showed a compact command center with stations for perhaps 10 crew members. The main display screen was dark, but smaller monitors around the room showed faint activity. "There is a computer terminal here," Vecnar said. "It is active, attempting to access the ship's log." The screen flickered to life, showing text in human language. The team's translator worked quickly. converting the words to Valorian script. "What does it say?" Thalaxis demanded. Vecnar's voice came through the speaker, now carrying audible fear. It says, "Project Lazarus, if you are reading this, we are awake." "What does that mean?" Crest then asked from his station on the Times Crimson Dominance asterisk. Before anyone could answer, all the lights on the human ship suddenly blazed to full brightness. The boarding team's camera feeds showed them spinning around, weapons raised. Then, one by one, the communication signals began cutting out. "Vecnar, report," Thalaxis shouted into his communicator. Static answered him. Then a scream, brief and sharp, cut through the interference. Another scream followed, then another. The audio feed crackled with sounds of struggle, of armored bodies hitting metal floors, of weapons firing blindly. Then, silence. Every camera feed showed only static. Every communication channel returned only dead air. "Get them back," Thalaxis ordered. "Boost the signal. Send another team." "Sir, all transmissions to the boarding party have failed," the communications officer reported. It is as if they simply vanished. The human ship's lights continued to burn steadily. As the crew of the Times Crimson Dominance Times watched in growing horror, the vessel began to move. Not with engine thrust, not with any visible means of propulsion, but it moved nonetheless. It rotated slowly, bringing its bow to face the Valorian dreadnought. "Sir, the ship is powering up," Creston said, his voice shaking. "I am reading energy signatures throughout the vessel. This is impossible. Our sensors showed no power core, no fuel, nothing that could sustain these levels." On the human ship's hull, near the bow, lights illuminated a section that had been dark before. Letters became visible, spelling out words in human script. "Translation?" Thalaxis asked, though part of him did not want to know. "UNES Retribution, sir. United Nations Earthship Retribution." The commander stared at the vessel, his mind racing. The Empire had destroyed Earth's space forces decades ago. Every human military installation had been reduced to debris. Their fleets had been hunted down and eliminated. No human warship should exist, especially not one that looked centuries old, yet functioned like new. "Weapons," he said, his voice steady despite his fear. "Target that ship. Prepare to fire." "Sir, we still have 20 warriors aboard that vessel," the weapons officer protested. "They are already lost. Fire." The Times Crimson Dominance Times unleashed a barrage of plasma bolts, enough firepower to vaporize a moon. The human ship simply drifted aside, moving with impossible grace for something so old. Every shot missed, as if the vessel knew where the weapons would fire before the triggers were pulled. The Times Retribution Times continued to approach, slow and deliberate. "All power to engines," Thalaxis commanded. "Get us away from that thing." But before the dreadnought could move, every system on the bridge flickered. Lights dimmed. Displays went dark for 3 seconds before returning. When they came back online, the human ship had stopped moving. It simply floated there, watching them like a predator that had decided its prey was not yet worth the effort. Then it turned away and drifted back into the graveyard of dead ships, its lights dimming until it vanished among the debris. Thalaxis stood frozen, his hands gripping the command console. Around him, his crew remained silent, afraid to speak, afraid to acknowledge what they had just witnessed. After a long moment, he activated the communication system to contact Imperial Command. His report would sound insane, he knew, but the truth was undeniable. Centi was 9,200 seen, one of the Mindbrime. Something had awakened in the darkness between stars. Something human. Something that should not exist. And it had let them live for a reason. Admiral Krevshan received the distress call from the Times Crimson Dominance Times while his fleet was conducting routine patrols 3 systems away. The message from Commander Thalaxis made little sense. A human ghost ship. A boarding party that vanished. Weapons that refused to hit their target. This is either equipment failure or the commander has lost his mind, Krevshan muttered to his second-in-command. Either way, we must investigate. He took 3 warships with him, each one a testament to Valorian military superiority. The Empire had not maintained its dominance through weakness. These vessels carried enough firepower to level continents, crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. They found the Times Crimson Dominance Times drifting at the edge of the Epsilon burial grounds, all systems functioning but the crew visibly shaken. Krevshan transported aboard and demanded to speak with Thel-Axis immediately. The commander looked as though he had aged 10 years in a single day. His scales had lost their usual luster, and his eyes kept darting to the shadows and corners of the bridge. "Admiral, I know my report sounds impossible," Thel-Axis began, but Krevshan raised a hand to silence him. "Show me this human ship." They searched the graveyard for 3 hours before finding it again. The Times. Retribution Times floated among the wreckage, dark and silent once more. It looked exactly as Thel-Axis had described, pristine and ancient at the same time. "Sensors?" Krevshan asked. "No power signatures, no life signs, no active systems," the sensor officer reported. "It appears completely dead, Admiral." Yet Commander Thel-Axis watched it move and function with no visible power source. Krevshan studied the human ship carefully. Interesting. As if responding to his attention, lights began flickering to life across the Times Retribution's Times hull. Slowly, section by section, the vessel illuminated itself until it blazed like a small star against the darkness. "All ships, combat formation," Krevshan ordered calmly. "Surround that vessel. If it moves, destroy it." The 4 Valorian warships spread out, creating a kill box around the human ship. Their weapons locked on, targeting systems achieving perfect acquisition. It was a formation that had destroyed entire enemy fleets during the war. The Times Retribution Times simply rotated to face them, moving with that same impossible grace that Thel-Axis had reported. Then, it began to approach, heading directly toward the Times Crimson Dominance *. "Fire," Krevshan commanded. The space between the ships lit up with plasma fire and particle beams. Enough energy to glass a planet poured toward the human vessel. But somehow, impossibly, every shot curved away, at the last moment. Or the ship moved before the weapons fired. Or the targeting systems locked onto empty space, while the vessel was clearly somewhere else. "This is not technology," whispered the science officer. "This is something else." The Times Retribution Times reached the Times Crimson Dominance Times and extended old-fashioned docking clamps, the kind used on ships 2 centuries past. They locked onto the hull with a sound that echoed through both vessels. "Repel boarders," Thel-Axis shouted. "All security teams to docking points." But nothing happened. No airlocks opened. No human soldiers came through. The human ship simply sat there, attached like a parasite, its lights pulsing in slow rhythm. 1 hour passed. Then 2. The Valorian crews watched and waited, weapons ready. But the Times Retribution Times did nothing. It just held on, silent and patient. Admiral Krevshan was preparing to order a boarding action of his own when every system on the Times Crimson Dominance Times suddenly went dark. The massive dreadnought became a dead hulk in space. No power, no life support, no communication. "Get me a connection," Krevshan demanded. "Transport teams over there now." It took 30 minutes to organize the rescue operation. When Valorian troops finally breached the Times Crimson Dominance *, they found the entire crew alive but unconscious. Every single warrior, officer, and technician lay on the decks, eyes closed, breathing steadily but not responding to any stimulus. Medical teams examined them and found nothing wrong. No injuries, no poison, no disease. They were simply asleep, or in some state, resembling sleep. The Times Retribution Times detached itself during the evacuation, drifting away into the debris field until it vanished from sensors. Krevshan stood in the medical bay of his flagship, staring at rows of catatonic Valorian soldiers. Their eyes moved beneath closed lids, as if experiencing intense dreams. "Wake them," he ordered the medical staff. "Admiral, we have tried. They do not respond to any normal stimulation. We could use chemical intervention. But, do it." They administered the drugs. One by one, the crew members of the Times, Crimson Dominance Times, began to stir. Their eyes opened. And then, they started screaming. The sound was horrible, full of terror and anguish beyond anything Krevshan had heard in 40 years of military service. Trained warriors curled into defensive positions, sobbing like children. Officers babbled incoherently, switching between languages, some speaking in human tongues they should not know. What did they see? Krevshan demanded of the doctors. "We do not know, Admiral. But their brain scans show activity consistent with experiencing extreme trauma. Whatever happened to them in those 2 hours, their minds believe it was real." Over the next few days, some of the crew recovered enough to speak coherently. Their stories were consistent, which made them more disturbing. They described being inside the minds of humans during the invasion 30 years ago. They felt the bombs falling on Earth's cities. They experienced the death of billions, each life ending in terror and pain. They saw their own faces, younger versions, pulling triggers and launching missiles that killed human children. "It made us remember," Commander Thelaxis said, his voice hollow. "It made us feel what we did. Every death, every scream, every moment of suffering we caused. I lived through 3 decades of human agony in 2 hours, Admiral. I felt them die. I felt humanity die. And I felt it was my fault." 8. Krevshan reported everything to Imperial Command, expecting orders to mobilize the full fleet and eliminate this threat. Instead, he received a priority message marked with the highest security clearance. "You are ordered to retreat from the Epsilon burial grounds immediately." The message read, "Do not engage the human vessel under any circumstances. Do not fire upon it. Do not approach it. If you encounter it again, flee." This order comes directly from the Emperor himself. "Flee?" Krevshan said aloud, unable to believe what he was reading. "The Empire does not flee." But he followed orders. The fleet withdrew, leaving the graveyard and its ghost ship behind. What he did not know was that 6 other Imperial vessels had reported similar encounters across 3 different sectors. The Times, Retribution Times, had appeared in each location, performed the same boarding procedure, left the same catatonic crews. It was moving between systems faster than any known drive technology allowed. In the Imperial capital, intelligence analysts worked through the night, reviewing old human transmissions intercepted during the war. They found references to something called Project Lazarus in scattered data fragments. The information was incomplete, heavily encrypted, but what they could translate was terrifying. Earth had known it would lose the war. In the final months before the invasion, they had launched 13 experimental vessels into deep space, crewed by volunteers who underwent procedures that intelligence could only guess at. Psychological conditioning, cybernetic enhancement, genetic modification. The reports were vague, but the intent was clear. If humanity died, these ships would ensure their killers never found peace. They would haunt the Empire forever, spreading fear and guilt like a virus. They were not designed to win a war. They were designed to be remembered. The analysts presented their findings to the military council. Every Imperial vessel in every sector received the same order. If you encounter a human vessel designated as part of Project Lazarus, retreat immediately. Do not engage. Do not communicate. Do not let it touch you. The Valorian Empire, masters of 1,000 worlds, warriors who had crushed dozens of species, issued an order to run from 13 old human ships And in the darkness between stars, the Times Retribution Times continued its slow patrol, hunting for those who had thought genocide would be forgotten. The reports came in from across Imperial space, each one following the same pattern. A ship would detect an unusual vessel, investigate, and then go silent. Hours later, rescue teams would find the crew alive but unresponsive, trapped in nightmares they could not escape. Captain Shenral of the Destroyer Times, Swift Vengeance Times, encountered the ghost ship in the Outer Reach territories. It appeared on his sensors as a derelict hauler, and he approached to salvage what he could. The moment his boarding team set foot on the vessel, everything changed. Lights blazed across the hull, revealing it as the Times UNES Retribution *. 3 hours later, Shenral and his entire crew were found unconscious, tears streaming from their closed eyes. Commander Vix Era met the ghost ship near a mining colony. She tried to flee immediately, following the new Imperial orders, but her engines failed. The human vessel drifted closer with that slow, patient movement. It attached itself to her cruiser and stayed for 90 minutes. When rescue arrived, they found Vixera awake and screaming, clawing at her own scales, begging forgiveness from people who had been dead for decades. Patrol Officer Drelvon encountered not the Times Retribution *, but a different vessel. This one called itself Times UNES Vengeance *, and it performed the same procedure. Later reports confirmed a third ship, UNES Reckoning *, operating in yet another sector. The Empire began to realize the scope of what they faced. These were not random attacks. The ships were hunting systematically, appearing at Imperial installations, trade routes, and military bases with disturbing precision. They did not destroy. They did not kill. They simply touched, transferred their terrible gift, and moved on. Intelligence Officer Krelmoth spent weeks analyzing the encounters, searching for patterns. He was one of the few Valorians who had studied human culture before the war, back when the species was considered interesting rather than threatening. They are not trying to defeat us militarily, he explained to his superiors. They are conducting psychological warfare on a scale we have never seen. Each encounter leaves the crew traumatized but alive. Those warriors spread their stories to others. Fear spreads faster than any disease. But why? Admiral Krevshan asked. If these ships have the capability to disable our vessels so easily, why not destroy them? Because dead warriors are forgotten, Krelmoth said. But traumatized ones? They remember. They tell others. And soon, the entire Empire knows what these ships can do. The humans are making us afraid of shadows. The Admiral studied the intelligence reports spread across his desk. You believe these ships are intelligent? That they have a plan? I believe they are learning, Admiral. Each encounter lasts longer than the last. Each crew reports more detailed experiences. The ghost ships are studying us, learning our language, our psychology, our guilt. Guilt? Krevshan's scales rippled with discomfort. Warriors do not feel guilt for victory. These warriors do. Krelmoth replied quietly. Every crew member who wakes from the encounter speaks of experiencing human deaths during our invasion. They describe specific moments, specific faces. They remember killing human children, destroying human homes, and the memories feel absolutely real to them. He pulled up a medical report on his data pad. Captain Shenral committed suicide 2 weeks after his encounter. Before he died, he recorded a message. He said he could not live with what he had done, even though logically he knew the memories were not his own. The experience was too vivid, too painful. He felt responsible for deaths that happened before he was born. The room fell silent. How many others? Krevshan asked. 17 suicides so far. Hundreds more receiving psychiatric care. The ghost ships are not just attacking our vessels, Admiral. They are attacking our souls. More evidence supported Krelmoth's analysis. Intercepted human transmissions from refugee colonies showed that survivors knew about the Lazarus ships. They spoke of them with religious reverence, as if the vessels were spirits of vengeance sent by their dead world. One transmission, broadcast from a hidden human settlement, contained a message clearly meant for Valorian ears. You thought you could erase us. You burned our cities, killed our people, scattered our survivors to die in the dark, but Earth sent out its children before the end. 13 ships, 13 curses. 13 reminders that we will never be forgotten. They don't need to destroy you. They just need to make you remember what you did. Imperial analysts discovered more about Project Lazarus through careful research. The program had been Earth's last desperate gambit, launched in the final months before the Valorian invasion reached Earth itself. 13 crews of volunteers, each having lost everything to the war, agreed to undergo experimental procedures that would transform them into something more than human. The details were fragmentary, but Krelmoth pieced together enough to understand the horror. The volunteers had been exposed to neural modification technology that linked their consciousness together. They experienced the deaths of billions of humans, not as abstract numbers, but as personal losses, each life becoming part of their shared memory. The procedure drove some volunteers insane, but those who survived emerged with minds fundamentally altered. They were no longer individuals. They were living memorials, carrying the weight of their entire species' suffering. And their ships, enhanced with experimental technology that Imperial science could not explain, became extensions of their will. They are not alive in the way we understand life, Krelmoth wrote in his report. The crews of these ships exist in a state between consciousness and something else. They are ghosts piloting ghost ships, bound by a singular purpose. Make the Empire remember. Make the Empire feel what humanity felt. The psychological impact on Imperial forces grew worse by the week. Entire fleets refused to patrol sectors where the ghost ships had been sighted. Crews deserted rather than risk an encounter. Civilian vessels demanded military escorts, then refused to travel even with protection. The Emperor himself addressed the crisis in a rare public broadcast. These human vessels represent no true military threat, he declared. They are psychological weapons. Nothing more. Our warriors must not give in to fear. The Empire is eternal. We will not be intimidated by ghosts. But his words rang hollow. Everyone knew the truth. The ghost ships were winning a war without firing a shot. Then the pattern shifted. Captain Tesh Vor of the battleship Times Iron Justice Times reported that his encounter with the Times UNES Retribution Times included something new. Instead of just experiencing human deaths, his crew reported seeing something else during their forced visions. They saw other Valorian warriors, faces they recognized, admitting to atrocities they had committed during the war. Murder of civilians, destruction of hospitals, torture of prisoners. The ship showed us our own people confessing their crimes, Teshvor said in his report. It showed us the truth of what we did. Not propaganda, not enemy claims, but actual events witnessed by our own kind. I saw my training officer, Commander Velkas, ordering the execution of human children who were hiding in a school. I saw his face. I heard his voice. I recognized his ship markings. The memory felt as real as my own existence. Intelligence confirmed that Commander Velkas had indeed participated in the Earth campaign and had been part of the ground invasion force. Cross-referencing the memories reported by Teshvor's crew with historical records revealed disturbing matches. The ghost ships were not just showing the human perspective anymore. They were showing Valorian war crimes through Valorian eyes. They are building a case, Krelmoth realized. Every encounter adds to their knowledge. They are collecting evidence of our atrocities, storing them, and presenting them to other warriors. They are creating an archive of guilt. Admiral Crave-Shan felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Can we stop them? I do not know, Krelmoth admitted. But I do know this. The longer they operate, the more powerful they become. not in weapons or shields, but in psychological impact. They are transforming the Empire's greatest strength, our military pride, into our greatest weakness. Every warrior who encounters them spreads doubt and fear. Every story erodes our confidence. Eventually, the Empire will collapse not from military defeat, but from moral exhaustion. The Admiral looked out at the stars. Then we must find a way to negotiate with them. They have not responded to any hails, Krelmoth said. They do not communicate. They simply hunt. Then what do they want? The intelligence officer considered the question carefully. I believe they want exactly what they are doing. They want us to remember. They want us to feel. They want the Empire to understand that genocide has consequences that last forever. The humans are dead, Admiral, but their curse lives on. The Imperial Military Council met in emergency session to devise a strategy. They could not continue avoiding the ghost ships. Fear was spreading through the ranks like poison. Something had to be done. We will set a trap, Grand Admiral Velnash declared. These ships respond to distress signals. We will create a false emergency and surround the location with our most powerful battle group. When the ghost ship arrives, we destroy it with overwhelming force before it can disable our systems. Admiral Krevshan objected. Every attempt to destroy these vessels has failed. Our weapons miss or malfunction. How will this be different? Because we will use different tactics, Velnash explained. Nuclear weapons. Launched from extreme range. Area saturation fire. We will turn the entire region of space into an inferno. Nothing can survive that, ghost or not. The plan was approved. Battle Group Hammer, consisting of 12 capital ships and 30 support vessels, took position in a carefully chosen sector. At the center, they placed a damaged frigate broadcasting emergency codes. The wait lasted 3 days. Then, sensors detected an anomaly, a ripple in space-time that preceded the ghost ship's arrival. The times UNES retribution times appeared exactly where predicted, drifting toward the distressed frigate with that same patient, deliberate motion. All ships, fire on my mark, Velnash commanded. 3, 2, 1. Mark. 42 vessels unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Nuclear missiles, plasma torpedoes, particle beams, graviton disruptors. Enough destruction to vaporize a small moon converged on the human ship. The time's retribution times vanished. For 3 seconds, sensors showed nothing. Then, it reappeared behind the battle formation, completely untouched. How? Someone shouted over the communication channel. How did it move? Before anyone could answer, 2 more ships materialized from nowhere. The times UNES vengeance times appeared to the left of the formation. The times UNES reckoning times appeared to the right. 3 ghost ships against 42 Imperial vessels. The odds were overwhelming. Then, the battle began. The ghost ships did not fight like normal vessels. They moved in ways that violated physics, turning at angles that should have torn their hulls apart, accelerating instantly without visible thrust. They wove through the Valorian formation, like dancers, graceful and terrible. And they spoke. Every communication channel in the fleet suddenly carried the same broadcast. Human voices, hundreds of them, speaking in perfect Valorian. Captain Dren Vol of the Destroyer Times, Sharp Edge **. You killed my daughter on Earth. Her name was Emma. She was 7 years old. Commander Shental of the Cruiser Times Iron Fist **. You ordered the bombing of New Tokyo. 2 million people died in the fires. Admiral Krevshan of the Dreadnought Times Endless Victory **. You commanded the fleet that destroyed the Mars colonies. 300,000 civilians, murdered in their homes. Name after name, crime after crime, face after face appeared on display screens throughout the fleet, showing human victims, children, elders, families. Each one identified. Each death attributed to a specific Valorian officer. "Turn it off," Velnash roared. "Block those transmissions." But the broadcasts continued, bypassing every security protocol. The ghost ships were not just sending signals. They were forcing the fleet to listen, to see, to remember. The Valorian ships fired again and again, but hitting the ghost ships proved impossible. The human vessels seemed to know where every shot would go before it was fired. They dodged, weaved, and occasionally simply vanished and reappeared elsewhere. When the Valorian weapons finally managed to score hits, the damage repaired itself in seconds. Holes in the hull sealed over with silvery material that flowed like liquid metal. Shattered sections rebuilt themselves. The ships were not just fast and agile. They were nearly immortal. "They are using nanotechnology," Krelmoth said from his position aboard Krevshan's flagship. "Self-repairing hull systems on a scale we have never achieved. This technology should not exist." The ghost ships counterattacked, but not with conventional weapons. The Times Retribution times approached the battleship times, Guardian's Pride times, and touched its hull with what appeared to be an energy field. The battleship's lights flickered, and its crew immediately began broadcasting screams of terror over open channels. The Times Vengeance times did the same to two cruisers, while the Times Reckoning times targeted a destroyer. "Concentrate fire on a single target," Velnash ordered. "All vessels, focus on the Times. Retribution **. Overwhelm its defenses." The fleet complied, pouring incredible amounts of firepower at the lead ghost ship. For a moment, it seemed to work. The Times, Retribution, Times shuddered under the assault, its shields flaring bright. But then it simply accelerated forward, diving directly into the formation. It passed through the space occupied by 3 Valorian destroyers. They did not collide. Instead, for a brief instant, all 3 destroyers' systems went dark. When power returned, their crews were catatonic, just like all the others. The ghost ship emerged on the other side of the formation, completely undamaged. "It passed through them," a sensor officer said, voice shaking. "It went through solid matter. That is impossible. Everything about these ships is impossible," Krevshan muttered. The battle continued for 2 hours, but it was not really a battle. It was a demonstration. The ghost ships moved through the Valorian formation at will, touching vessels here and there, leaving trauma in their wake. They broadcast the names of the dead continuously. They showed images of burning cities, of children running from flames, of families torn apart. Captain Drenvol, whose name had been called out by the broadcasts, made a decision that shocked everyone. He opened a communication channel directly. "Retribution. This is Captain Drenvol. I hear you. I remember what I did. I remember Emma. I remember all of them." His voice cracked. "I cannot undo it. I cannot bring them back. But I hear you. I remember." For the first time, one of the ghost ships responded. The voice that came through was not mechanical. It was not a single voice either, but many voices, speaking together. Human and haunting. "You remember now. But will you remember tomorrow? Will the Empire remember in a year? In 10 years? That is why we exist. We are memory made manifest. We are the dead, speaking through the living. We are humanity's final testament. You will remember us, or we will make you remember, for as long as your empire stands." Drenvol slumped in his command chair, tears running down his scaled face. "What do you want from us?" "Dren, we want your surrender. We want your acknowledgement. We want the galaxy to know what you did. We want monuments built to our dead. We want your children to learn our names. We want humanity remembered not as a species you erased, but as a species you murdered." Grand Admiral Velnash, listening to this exchange, made his own decision. "All ships, retreat. Full speed. Abandon the trap." The order stunned everyone. Valorian warriors did not flee from battle, but the Grand Admiral's voice carried an authority that could not be questioned. "This is not a battle we can win," he said quietly. "Look at what we face. These are not ships. They are curses. They are grief, given form. Every weapon we fire, every strategy we attempt, it means nothing against an enemy that wants only to be remembered." The fleet began to withdraw, and the ghost ships let them go. They simply floated there, broadcasting their message to empty space, ensuring every recording device in the battle group captured their words. Only 2 vessels did not retreat. The battleship times, Guardian's Pride times, and the cruiser times, Frozen Dawn times, remained, their crews unconscious, adrift in space. Rescue teams were dispatched later and found the same result as always. The crews were alive, but catatonic, trapped in visions of human suffering. But this time, when they finally woke, something was different. They simply looked at their rescuers with hollow eyes and said, "We deserve this." The Battle of Hammer Point, as it came to be called, marked a turning point. The Empire had thrown significant military force at the ghost ships and achieved nothing except spreading more trauma, more fear, more guilt. Intelligence reports arriving in the following days brought worse news. 10 more ghost ships had been confirmed active, each operating in different Imperial territories. Their names were catalogued: Asterisk, Unes, Fury, Asterisk, Asterisk, Unes Sorrow, Asterisk, Asterisk, Unes Memory, Asterisk, Asterisk, Unes Testament, Asterisk, Asterisk, Unes Witness, Justice Asterisk, Asterisk Unes, Requiem Asterisk, Asterisk Unes Echo, Asterisk Asterisk, Asterisk Unes Mourning Asterisk, and times Unes Legacy Asterisk. 13 ships total, just as the old human transmissions had indicated. 13 curses. Hunting across Imperial space, making coordinated strikes that seemed designed to maximize psychological impact rather than strategic advantage. And with each encounter, each broadcast, each crew left traumatized, the Empire felt its grip on power weakening. Not from military loss, but from something far more insidious: the slow erosion of moral certainty. The Valorian Empire had built itself on the belief that might made right, that victory justified any action. The ghost ships challenged that belief with every appearance, forcing warriors to confront what victory had truly cost. The Valorian Empire was crumbling from within, not through military defeat, but through something far more destructive: loss of will. Entire fleets refused deployment orders, their crews citing psychological trauma and moral objections. Military bases reported mass desertions. Civilian populations, learning the truth about what had been done to humanity, took to the streets in protests that sometimes turned violent. "They are cowards," Emperor Thrascor raged at his council. "We are the Valorian Empire. We have conquered 100 worlds. How can 13 ancient human ships destroy everything we have built?" "They are not destroying our military capability, my Emperor," Intelligence Officer Krelmoth said carefully. "They are destroying our willingness to use it. Every day, more warriors refuse to serve. Every day, more citizens question whether our conquests were just. The ghost ships have weaponized our guilt." "Guilt?" The Emperor's scales flushed dark with anger. "Warriors feel no guilt for victory." "These warriors do," Admiral Krevshan said quietly. He had aged significantly in the past months, his scales dulling, his movements slower. "I have spoken with hundreds of crew members who survived encounters with the ghost ships. They all say the same thing. They experienced human suffering as if it were their own. They felt children dying in their arms. They watched cities burn through human eyes. These are not abstract concepts anymore. They are personal memories, as real as anything they have lived themselves." The Emperor turned away, staring out at the capital city visible through the massive windows. What do they want? The ghost ships. What do they truly want? They want us to surrender, Krelmoth said. They want formal acknowledgement of our crimes. They want the Empire to admit what it did to humanity. Never, Thrazkor said. The Empire does not apologize. We do not show weakness to defeated enemies. But humanity is not defeated, Krevshan said. That is what we are learning. They lost the war, yes. They lost their homeworld, their fleets, their civilization. But they survived through these ships, and these ships are winning a different kind of war, one that cannot be fought with weapons. Grand Admiral Velnash entered the council chamber, his ceremonial armor bearing new scars from recent encounters. My Emperor, I must report that 3 more battle groups have encountered the ghost ships in the last week. Our casualties are minimal in terms of deaths, but we have lost over 4,000 warriors to psychological trauma. They are alive, but they cannot function. They cannot serve. How many ships are operational? The Emperor asked. Fully operational? Perhaps 60% of our fleet. The rest are either refusing orders or operating at reduced capacity due to crew shortages. We are still militarily superior to any potential enemy, but our forces are paralyzed by fear. The Emperor slammed his fist against the window. I will not surrender to ghosts. Then what do you propose, my Emperor? Krelmoth asked. Silence filled the chamber. No one had an answer. Finally, Captain Drenval spoke. He had been called to the council specifically because of his unique experience. He was the only warrior who had directly communicated with the ghost ships. I believe they will destroy us eventually, he said. Not through direct combat, but through attrition. Every encounter spreads more fear, more doubt, more guilt. Eventually, the Empire will collapse from internal pressure. Civilians are already demanding war crimes tribunals. Military units are fracturing along moral lines. Some fleets want to continue fighting. Others want to negotiate. We are tearing ourselves apart. What would you have me do? The Emperor demanded. Drenvol met his ruler's eyes without flinching. Surrender. Admit what we did. Accept the consequences. The Emperor's hand moved toward the weapon at his side, but Krevshan stepped between them. He speaks truth, my Emperor. Painful truth, but truth nonetheless. We can continue as we are, watching our empire disintegrate, or we can choose to end this on terms that might preserve something of what we have built. The ghost ships will kill us all the moment we show weakness, the Emperor argued. I do not believe that, Drenvol said. During my communication with the Times, Retribution *, it said they want remembrance. They want acknowledgement. They want the galaxy to know what happened to humanity. They are not seeking genocide in return. They are seeking justice. Or perhaps something even deeper. They are seeking to ensure their species is not forgotten. The debate continued for hours, stretching into days. The council chamber became a battleground of competing philosophies. Some argued for renewed military action. Others suggested attempting to locate the remaining human survivors and destroy them. Removing the ghost ships' reason to exist. A few voices called for full surrender and reparations. Meanwhile, the ghost ships continued their campaign. They appeared at random locations, always striking psychological targets rather than strategic ones. They broadcast the names of the dead. They showed images of human culture, music, art, all the things that had been lost when the Empire destroyed Earth. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Civilian populations, exposed to these broadcasts, began to question everything they had been told about the war. Had humanity really been a threat? Had the invasion been justified? Or had the Empire simply committed genocide for resources and territory? Riots broke out on 17 worlds. Not military uprisings, but civilian protests demanding accountability. Memorials to human victims appeared in city squares, built by Valorian citizens who felt compelled to acknowledge what their government had done. The Emperor found himself trapped between two impossible choices. Continue fighting a war that was destroying his empire from within, or surrender to an enemy that consisted of 13 ghost ships and a scattered remnant of refugees. Intelligence Officer Krelmoth provided one final report that changed everything. His team had located the surviving human population, 2 billion people, scattered across 14 hidden colonies and countless refugee ships. They had been living in secret for 30 years, slowly rebuilding their civilization from fragments. They are vulnerable, the military council noted. We could launch strikes against these colonies and eliminate the remaining humans entirely. Without survivors, the ghost ships would have no one to avenge. Do you truly believe that? Krevshan asked. After everything we have seen, do you think the ghost ships need living humans to continue their mission? They are beyond life and death now. They exist as pure purpose. Killing the survivors would only prove their point about our species. Emperor Thrazkor made his decision. Prepare a message. Broadcast it on all frequencies, every channel, every communication system in Imperial space. The message was recorded and transmitted across the galaxy. I am Emperor Thrazkor of the Valorian Empire. 30 years ago, our forces invaded human-controlled space and destroyed their civilization. We killed billions. We burned their homeworld. We scattered their survivors across the stars. These actions were taken in the name of imperial expansion and security. I now acknowledge that these actions constitute genocide. The Valorian Empire hereby offers unconditional surrender to the surviving human population and to the vessels that represent humanity's memory. We accept full responsibility for our crimes. We offer reparations, territory, and our own subjugation if required. We ask only that this cycle of violence end. The message broadcast repeatedly for 3 days. The entire empire held its breath, waiting for a response. Nothing happened. The ghost ships continued their patrols, appearing and disappearing without acknowledging the surrender. Warriors still encountered them, still suffered the psychological trauma. The broadcasts of human names continued. On the 4th day, the Times UNES Retribution Times appeared in orbit above the Imperial homeworld. Alone, planetary defenses locked onto the vessel but did not fire. The Emperor had given strict orders: no aggression, no matter what happened. The ghost ship hung there in the sky, visible to everyone on the planet's surface. Millions of Valorians looked up and saw humanity's curse floating above their capital city. For 3 days, nothing happened. The ship simply waited, silent and patient. Then it transmitted a message. The same chorus of human voices, speaking as one. Your surrender is acknowledged. We do not come to destroy your empire, though we could. We do not come to enslave your people, though you enslaved and murdered ours. We come with a different purpose. We are memory. We are testament. We are the evidence that genocide has consequences beyond death. You have acknowledged your crimes. Now you will remember them. Your children will remember them. Non. Your children's children will remember them. Every generation of your species will know what the Valorian Empire did to humanity. You will build monuments to our dead. You will teach your youth our names. You will ensure that across all the centuries to come, humanity is not forgotten. That is our price. That is our justice. Not revenge, but remembrance. The Emperor responded immediately. We accept these terms. Monuments will be built. History will be taught truthfully. Humanity will be remembered. The chorus spoke again. We will watch. We will patrol your space forever. If you forget, we will remind you. If you deny, we will show you truth. If you attempt to erase our memory, we will appear in your skies and make you feel what you have done. The Times, Retribution Times, remained in orbit for 1 more day, then vanished as mysteriously as it had arrived. The other ghost ships continued their patrols, but the encounters changed. They still approached Imperial vessels, still broadcast their messages, but they no longer induced the catatonic states. They simply watched, ensuring the Empire kept its word. Years passed. The Valorian Empire transformed itself, slowly and painfully. War crimes tribunals were held. Officers who had participated in the genocide faced judgment. Monuments rose on every Imperial world, bearing the names of human dead. Children learned in schools about what their ancestors had done. The ghost ships became a permanent presence in Valorian space, appearing without warning, reminding everyone of what could never be forgotten. The surviving humans, those 2 billion refugees, eventually made contact with the Empire. Negotiations were tense, bitter, but they led to an agreement. Humans received worlds to settle, resources to rebuild, and a promise of protection. But the ghost ships remained separate. The Lazarus crews, whatever they had become through their transformation, existed beyond normal human authority. They continued their eternal patrol, guardians of memory, ensuring that the price of genocide would be paid forever. Admiral Krevshan, now retired, wrote in his final journal entry, "We thought we had won the war when we destroyed Earth. We were wrong. The humans won by refusing to let us forget what we had done. Their ghost ships are not weapons. They are mirrors, forcing us to see ourselves as we truly are. And perhaps that is the most powerful weapon of all. We are the Valorian Empire, conquerors of 100 worlds, brought to our knees not by force, but by memory, by guilt, by the simple truth that some actions cannot be undone, and some crimes cannot be forgiven, only remembered. In the darkness between stars, the Times UNES Retribution Times continued its watch, patient and eternal, humanity's final gift to a galaxy that had thought it could erase them. The dead remembered, and they would ensure the living never forgot.